On the evening of Vicky Fowler, Alice Haig, and Ross Marshall's Alex Walkinshaw wedding, young Jordan ran away from Chelsea after she snapped at him. He was hit by Ian, who has been consumed with guilt ever since. Even though Chelsea and Ian shared an emotional moment at the hospital this week, Ian has been working hard to prepare himself for what lies ahead, choosing to gain advice from solicitor Johnny Carter, Charlie Suff, about his situation. In this evening's episode, Chelsea spoke to one of Jordan's doctors about his progress. In a quiet room, she discovered that there is a very high chance Jordan's rehabilitation might not work. Reeling in the shock that her young boy might be paralyzed, Chelsea chose to take her anger out on Ian. At the Beale household, Chelsea railed at Ian and blamed him for Jordan's situation. She pointed out that Ian knows he's fully at fault, because he's already speaking to a solicitor. Chelsea slapped Ian across the face and said that she will make him pay. But what exactly will she do next? This storyline will eventually lead to the return of Jordan's father and serial killer Gray Atkins, Toby Alexander Smith. More foundations are laid next week when Libby Fox, Belinda Owusu, arrives back on the square to support Denise Fox, Diane Parrish, and Chelsea admits that Gray's Nan Sheila has been sending checks to help support Jordan that she hasn't cashed. With Chelsea overwhelmed with caring for her young son and the rising costs associated with his recovery, Libby secretly attempts to contact Sheila. She is interrupted, however, when their stepdad Jack Branning, Scott Maslin, calls her and Chelsea to the hospital to see their mom, who makes them promise to care for one another should anything happen to her. However, the harmony between the sisters is later blown apart when Chelsea notices a text from Sheila on Libby's phone while at the Vic. Feeling betrayed, Chelsea seeks advice from Eve Panasaranwin, Heather Peace, and ultimately makes peace with Libby and agrees to call Sheila for help. With Libby's support, a nervous Chelsea meets Sheila and is relieved to learn that she has no contact with Gray after probing about their relationship. Sheila then offers financial help for Jordan, which Chelsea initially accepts. However, she later has a change of heart when she's haunted by thoughts about her evil ex-husband and returns the cash. What chaos will Gray cause when he eventually enters Chelsea's life once more? Chelsea Fox stood frozen in the sterile hospital corridor, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear the consultant's final words. The devastating prognosis for Jordan had shattered her world in an instant. "I'm sorry," the doctor said gently. "Jordan's recovery is going to be far more complicated than we initially hoped." The words echoed endlessly in Chelsea's mind. Only days earlier, she had been clinging to hope. Jordan had survived the accident, and everyone believed the worst was behind him. But now the reality was painfully different. His injuries were severe, and the road ahead would be long, uncertain, and filled with challenges. As the consultant walked away, Chelsea felt a wave of anger rising inside her, because deep down she knew exactly who she blamed. Ian Beale. For weeks, Ian had inserted himself into situations involving Jordan, constantly claiming he wanted to help. But Chelsea had never trusted him. There was always an agenda with Ian, always a hidden motive lurking behind his concerned smile. And now Jordan was paying the price. Back in Albert Square, word of Jordan's prognosis spread quickly. Residents exchanged worried glances as they gathered outside the cafe. "It's awful," Kathy said quietly. Peter nodded. Chelsea must be devastated. What nobody realized was just how furious Chelsea had become. Later that evening, she returned to Walford carrying a storm of emotions. Grief, fear, heartbreak, and overwhelming rage. As she walked through the square, she spotted Ian locking up the cafe. Perfect timing. "Ian!" she shouted. Ian turned around surprised. "Chelsea!" The look on her face immediately told him something was wrong. "What's happened?" Chelsea marched straight toward him. "The doctors gave us an update." Ian frowned. "And?" Her eyes filled with tears. "It's bad, Ian. Really bad." For a moment, genuine sympathy crossed Ian's face. "I'm sorry." But Chelsea wasn't interested in sympathy. "You don't get to be sorry." Ian looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means Jordan wouldn't be in this position if you'd stayed out of our residence." Stopped to watch. Ian's expression darkened. "That's not fair." "Not fair." Chelsea snapped. "You pushed and pushed and pushed until everything fell apart." "I was trying to help." "No, you were trying to control everything." Ian shook his head. "That's not true." Chelsea stepped closer. You always think you know best. Chelsea. No. Her voice echoed across the square. For once, stop making excuses. Ian could feel the attention of every resident focused on them. I understand you're upset. You understand nothing. Chelsea's voice cracked. My son is suffering, and all you care about is protecting yourself. Ian fell silent. For the first time he looked genuinely shaken. But Chelsea wasn't finished. Over the next few days, she launched a campaign that threatened to destroy Ian's reputation completely. Everywhere she went, she told people exactly what she thought. At the pub, at the market, even inside the cafe itself. People began questioning Ian's role in everything that had happened. Whispers spread across Walford. Maybe Chelsea was right. Maybe Ian had overstepped. Maybe he had made things worse. The pressure quickly mounted. Even Kathy became concerned. You need to sort this out, she warned her son. Ian sighed heavily. I've done nothing wrong. Then why is everyone turning against you? He didn't have an answer. Meanwhile, Chelsea was becoming increasingly determined. Every hospital visit left her more heartbroken. Jordan's condition remained fragile. Watching him struggle only strengthened her resolve. Someone had to be held accountable. And in her eyes, that someone was Ian. One afternoon, she confronted him again. This time inside the cafe. Customers immediately sensed trouble. Chelsea, Ian said cautiously. We need to talk. No, she replied coldly. You need to listen. The room fell silent. Chelsea pointed directly at him. You've spent years manipulating people. Ian stared back. That's ridiculous. Is it? She turned toward the customers. How many times has Ian interfered in your lives? Nobody spoke, but several people looked uncomfortable. That was enough. Chelsea smiled grimly. Exactly. Ian's face reddened. You're trying to humiliate me. No. Chelsea's voice was ice cold. I'm showing everyone who you really are. The confrontation left Ian rattled. For the first time in years he felt isolated. Friends avoided him. Customers stopped visiting the cafe. Even longtime supporters began keeping their distance. Chelsea watched it all unfold. Part of her felt satisfied. But another part remained consumed by worry for Jordan. Nothing could change the reality she faced every day in that hospital room. One evening, Linda found Chelsea sitting alone on a bench. You okay? She asked gently. Chelsea laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? Linda sat beside her. You've been carrying a lot. Chelsea nodded. I just don't know what to do anymore. Tears filled her eyes. I'm terrified. Linda squeezed her hand. It's okay to be scared. For a moment, Chelsea allowed herself to be vulnerable. The anger faded. The grief remained. And beneath it all was a mother desperately trying to protect her son. But the next morning brought fresh devastation. Doctors reported another setback in Jordan's recovery. Chelsea felt her world crumble all over again. And this time, her fury returned stronger than ever. She marched straight across the square. Residents watched nervously as she headed toward Ian's cafe. Inside, Ian looked up and immediately knew trouble was coming. Chelsea, you've taken enough from me. Ian stood speechless. I'm not responsible for this. Maybe not directly. She stared him down. But you've caused pain wherever you go. The cafe fell silent. Chelsea's voice trembled. And now my family is paying the price. Ian looked genuinely devastated. But Chelsea no longer cared. As she walked away, she left him standing alone. For the first time, Ian Beale found himself completely isolated in Walford. And while Jordan's future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Chelsea Fox was determined to make Ian answer for every mistake, every manipulation, and every moment of pain she believed he had caused. The battle between them was only just beginning, and Albert Square would never be the same again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to EastEnders Spoilers Official.